Hello there, beautiful friends of Scrum in Ukraine and hopefully the wider region. My name is Gunther Verheyen. I like to call myself an independent Scrum caretaker, and it's an honor to be invited to participate in the Simplicity Day event of 2024. I look much forward to that because, as you know, simplicity is a really crucial thing in Scrum and in general in using Scrum to tackle complexity. Now, that doesn't make life more easy, simplicity. And as you know, because we say about Scrum, Scrum is simple but not easy. And that's an important thing. Now, Scrum is a great tool and instrument to tackle complex challenges and complex problems. Now, this idea of simplicity and complexity might cause some confusion. So, I would like to dive into that topic a little bit first. So, this is a quote that I've added to a little book that I wrote a long time ago. It was called Scrum, a Pocket Guide. In the meantime, by the way, there was recently published an update of my book. I created an update. It was the fourth edition. And in that fourth edition, I added something to build on this statement saying, complexity is our world, but simplicity is our path. And I've added something about it. So let me read that from my little book. It says the simplicity of Scrum is crucial to address complexity. When we say that Scrum is simple, we mean to say that Scrum has a simple set of rules. When we add that Scrum is not easy, we mean to say that it is not easy to stick to Scrum simplicity. Certainly not for organizations with their roots in the industrial paradigm. The idea of Scrum is not to pretend that the problem itself becomes simple by using Scrum and would thus not be complex anymore. That would be simplistic. So think about that. Scrum is simple because it's only a lightweight set of instructions that we have. And that simplicity is crucial to address complexity. The ambition of Scrum is not to pretend as if our problems become simple and easy. That is not the case. Now, at this occasion, at the Simplicity Day event, I wanted to talk about another aspect that I feel is missing in a lot of adoptions or adoption efforts of Scrum, and it is imagination. Because Scrum is not just simple, Scrum is for me also a very different way of working than the old school ways of working that have their roots in industrial thinking, the sort of paradigm, manufacturing processes, and so on. And it reminds me of a long time ago, by the end of 2017, I remember talking about this. It was still the age of agile transformations. People were still waking up from the illusion that agile transformations would be really helping them. And already by then, I started pointing out, in all those agile transformations, it's cool. You've got processes, you've got tools, you try to work with the people involved, you've got plans, ambitions, and so on, all beautiful. But what is missing is imagination. And that applied on agile transformations, but that still applies today on organizations adopting Scrum. I feel too many organizations and the people involved, leadership involved, are missing imagination. In that sense, can you imagine Scrum working at your organization? And then I mean Scrum as this designed to be, including that simplicity, including sticking to the simple set of rules, not changing rules, not adding rules, not making it more complicated, not omitting rules and so on. Can you imagine that happening? And I want to use this occasion, my involvement in the Simplicity Day event of 2024, to present a couple of challenges that hopefully will spark your imagination. So I'm going to present some challenges in three areas or three domains and end that with open questions. And I hope you will work upon them, you will think about it, that you will collaborate with other people, that you form groups, teams, whatever, to think about those questions and hopefully come up with some sort of answer before the 14th of December. And it's all inspired by that idea that, like I said in quoting my book, organizations that have their roots in the industrial age, the industrial way of working, the industrial thinking, um, are not set up in the best possible way to deal in the best possible ways with the problems of today. Because they are organized for utilization, resources, reusing things and so on, efficiency, all sort of tweaking sort of the organization as if it was an engine or a machine and not minding impact. In that sense, there's a huge shift that we still need to make from volume to value. Volume is doing more, quicker, faster, whatever, quicker time, shorter time to market, quicker on the market, whatever, with more stuff out there. It's sort of the manufacturing line thinking, producing more output on a daily or a weekly or a sprintly, whatever basis. But that's not the same as impact or value. And I want to present some challenges. Before, I want to get you started a little bit. So let me clarify what I mean with that. Traditionally, organizations, certainly with their roots in the industrial paradigm, are organized with lots of silos where people are organized in silos based upon specialties, specializations, expertise, and so on, functions, let's say. And on top of that, we've got governance that describes or prescribes how people should work together, how the processes that should be followed, the governance that should be applied, the procedures, and so on. Yeah, and then we've got layers on top of that, management up to the executive layer, let's say. This is not a way to this is all about looking at ourselves internally and optimizing for utilization, making sure that people are busy. And certainly, given the rising complexity and complex challenges and this real-time world that we have to operate in which we have to be 24/7 connected with globalization and so on, hugely complex situations, very unpredictable, a lot of uncertainties, many unknowns. And this way of organizing helps us realize, oh my God, this is rigid. This is slow. This is full of delays. This is not flexible. This doesn't offer any dynamics. This is rigid. And rigidity, in that sense, is the antithesis of agility. So think about that. Now, when faced with that rigidity, a lot of those organizations feel, okay, we have to adopt Scrum or become more agile. You remember the past age of agile transformations that is over, but still organizations are still trying to adopt Scrum for that reason of flexibility and dynamism. So, what they typically do is they organize or reorganize or reform those individuals into what they call teams. Now, often what I've found in organizations is those teams are still organized within those silos often, still a lot around expertise, specific types of work, and so on. In that sense, after a while, many organizations find out, oh my God, this is still rigid. This is still a setup of rigidity and not the agility that they were looking for. Like a lot of those agile transformations delivered no more than an illusion of agility, not making organizations truly more agile. So we are still not organized for impact. It's still all based upon or focused on utilization. And the reason is because creating more agile teams will not make your organization more agile necessarily. So something to think about. And what I miss in most organizations is the lack of courage to touch the structures and the systems and the procedures and the processes around Scrum. But even in a way doing Scrum properly. So let me present three challenges and end that with a number of open questions, and hopefully you will find people and the time to work around that. So my first challenge is reimagine your Scrum. because what most organizations would call Scrum probably looks like Scrum, seems like Scrum, but probably isn't completely, let's say, the real thing. And how to reimagine your Scrum is to go back to your why. Why are you introducing Scrum? What were you hoping to achieve by introducing Scrum? And I've tried to capture that in saying, know your why, because Scrum cannot be the purpose of Scrum. Do not Scrum because of Scrum. And that is important for me because Scrum is an empirical framework. As you know, it's built upon empiricism. It builds upon the power of people, self-organizing people. It's what I call Scrum's DNA, meaning the two important management principles underlying Scrum, empiricism and self-organization. That is reflected in my definition of Scrum. But in my definition of Scrum, I've also tried to indicate what the purpose of Scrum should be in general terms. It's to tackle complex challenges with empiricism, self-organization, important, but the goal ultimately is to derive value from our work. And value, like I said, is not the same as volume. Value is having an impact. It's the outcome of your output. And that is for me important. And what we like to say in Scrum is product has always been essential in Scrum, not in the least because product, we say, is the vehicle to deliver value. So if you want to have an impact, then product is your way, your vehicle to do so. And that is important. And then to think about, yeah, but what do you then mean with product? And it's difficult to get a really good definition. The dictionary is a little bit boring, honestly, in my opinion. So I've tried to come up with a long time ago already. Tried to come up with a definition of what a product for me is in Scrum, not just in general, but in Scrum. Meaning a product can be something tangible, it can be non-tangible, it can be a physical product, it can be a digital product, whatever. It can be a good, something that you produce, it can be a device that you create, it can be a system, an application, it can ultimately be a service, why not? Or even better, why not an experience you try to offer? What for me is crucial that a product in Scrum should not just provide value, but should provide value to the consumers of the product, the people in the end consuming the product, having to utilize, whatever, employ the product to solve real problems for them. So for me, product in Scrum only makes sense if your product provides value to the end users, the consumers of the product. Because in a lot of those organizations, when they set up those teams within the existing constructions, let's say, and they are still not organized for impact, it's because what is missing when forming people into teams and starting up Scrum teams and adopting Scrum is the idea of product. Product is the missing starting point in a lot of Scrum adoptions. And that is important because Scrum is the vehicle to deliver value. Value is ultimately the purpose of Scrum. Value is also the success criteria in a complex world for me. Not volume, but value. And then when I look at organizations that organize individuals into teams within those silos, then often they have like micro teams. Like they used to have individual and now just micro teams, but they still have to throw over work to each other, hand over work to each other, wait for each other. So it's full of cross-team dependencies. And a lot of those cross-team dependencies would have been solved if those organizations would have started with clearly identifying what is our product and then organizing their Scrum to optimally serve the product and not just use Scrum to continue that utilization ID. So I want you to think about it. So think about the importance of knowing your product. What is your product? And the need to put product front and center in Scrum, because it's not just a vehicle to deliver value, it's also essential in Scrum because we have a product backlog, a backlog for a product. We have an owner of a product, and the idea of Scrum is to produce valuable increments of the product. So think about the importance of product. And if you would look at your implementation of Scrum, your instance of Scrum, and you think about identifying your product first, the service, the digital service, whatever, but keeping the consumers in mind. So if you think about your product, you might want to start with thinking about the consumers. So imagine you would put product front and center in your instance, your implementation of Scrum. How would that impact your instance of Scrum? What would be different? What would be the change in reimagine, reorganizing your Scrum for product? And that's my first question. But my second question is, the success in Scrum and the success of an adoption of Scrum should be in the increased ability to deliver value. That is already reflected in the core purpose of a product owner, maximize value. So if you put product front and center in your Scrum, how will that change your implementation of Scrum? And what will be the further impact of working with value, thinking in terms of value? How would you define value? How would working with value further impact your Scrum? And like I said, I almost hope this goes beyond your current implementation of Scrum. So if needed, again, use your imagination. So think about that. So I hope you will take some time for that. I've got two more challenges for you guys. So the next thing is to reorganize around Scrum. Um, like I said in a quote, Scrum is hardly used effectively if you don't touch, reorganize, rethink the structures around Scrum. That is essential. Because when those organizations adopt Scrum, whether it's part of an agile transformation or not, that is of no importance. When they start adopting Scrum and they form Scrum teams, they miss the idea of product. But what they also miss is all the structures around Scrum. All those organizational structures and constructions around Scrum. Scrum will have an impact on the broader organization. You can set up Scrum teams to do development for a product, but it will not change the fact that there will be an impact on all the things around Scrum. And I want to help you think about that too. And I want to draw on this law. It's called Conway's Law. It was formulated by a software development guy a long time ago, 1967. And he had found, and that has been confirmed by research in the meantime, by the way, he had found that, you know what? A product, I'm going to use the Scrum term, he says a system, I'm going to use the Scrum term for that. A product will reflect the communication, the interactions that have been used to produce the product, to create it. So he said any organization that designs a system, and in our case a product, will produce a design for the product whose structure is a copy of the organization's communication structure. So starting with product and organizing your Scrum for product, but not rethinking all of the other structures around it is not going to help. So my second question for you guys is the following. So if you understand Conway's law, on top of already the need to put it front and center in Scrum anyhow, because it is the vehicle to deliver value. It's Scrum is a product management framework. If you want, so thinking about product is important. Now Conway's law emphasizes the importance even more. So if you reimagine your Scrum to ultimately serve your product, what else could you do? What else should you do? What other structures do you have in place that will help you think about using Conway's law in your advantage? Because those communication structures will be reproduced in your final product. So the challenge in this case is to rethink the structures within the organization on top of Scrum, even rethink them in a way so that you will, by reorganizing, by recreating those communication structures, what how Conway calls them, to optimize them so that you know you will produce a better product because those communication structures will be reflected in your product. So again, use your imagination. What else needs to change within your organization around Scrum to create actually better products and increase your ability to deliver value even more? And then I don't just call myself an independent Scrum caretaker. I call myself an independent Scrum caretaker on a journey. It's all about the journey of humanizing the workplace with Scrum. So when organizations adopt Scrum, they miss the idea of product. They don't have the courage to touch structures and organizational constructions around Scrum. But also, I feel they miss out the point of Scrum and the wider Agile movement of trying to restore the respect for people and the people certainly doing the work. In the end, it will always be about people. And people are, as you know, human beings, not resources, not replaceable pieces of machinery, not AI robots, whatever. And Conway's law emphasizes that we should focus on the communication structures that we use to build products. There are very clear indications that we should focus on people a lot more than we do currently. And that is in the fact that look around you. Look at people being absent from the workplace and long-term absenteeism, stress levels in the workplace, toxic atmospheres in the workplace, burnouts, depressions, and so on. I'm from Belgium, in my country, and I've been checking this with other countries, not just in Europe, but across the world. It's the same everywhere. We keep burning out people. And that is sad, that is bad, that is not a sustainable future in that sense. And there's also been research about it's connected to that or the levels of engagement of people on the work floor, and it's saddening low. That means in general, it's from the Gallup Institute. They found that, and again, the trend lines are there. It's not changing. It's not. It's just increasing, getting worse year by year by year. And they have found that over 85% or around 85% of employees are not engaged or even actively disengaged. So with some nuances across the world and regions and economic sectors, we could say that no more than 20 to 25% of people working for an organization are truly inspired, energized, engaged for that organization. In Scrum, we would call that committed to the organization. And that means in general, it's about 60% of people that are like sort of couldn't care less. I don't really care. I just want to go home as quickly as possible and then finally do the things that I like to do. But it also means that around 15 to 20% of people are what they call actively disengaged, working against the organization. Imagine working against colleagues and so on. And I'm very sure that if you look around in your organization, yeah, you will be able to identify those 15 to 20% of people that are truly engaged. They are the ones that you always go to for certain questions that are not probably bothered by the bureaucracy, but just think in terms of solutions. So we have good reasons to think about people. And it's even better. Um, from that same research from the Gallup Institute, it has turned out that businesses, organizations, enterprises that actively focus on the well-being of their people get better results. In evidence-based management, or what I like to call empirical management, we put value at the heart of what we do via the product. So its impact, it's the outcome. And it might be useful to try to measure that and I've tried to call a long time ago key value indicators. So you've got key value indicators that reflect your ability to deliver value to the market, to your users, your consumers, your customers, and to deliver value for your organization. And for organizations that really focus on the well-being of their people, it seems that those outcomes are really remarkably better than in other organizations. Profitability, money for the organization, more sales, good for the organization, more revenues, higher productivity, more production of value. Productivity for me in Scrum terms is the ability to produce value, not just to produce more, but have an impact. And customer metrics. Customer satisfaction might be market share and so on. Now, what is even more important, that there is evidence that they indeed focus on their employees and the well-being of the employees a lot more, because in terms of employee outcomes, um, also a lot better, meaning less people leaving the organization, less people wanting to change jobs, less people um, at home for a long time with some sort of burnout or other depressions, and less stress levels and so on. And it all shows in those things, better quality, less safety incidents, and so on. So, and just to be clear, this is the direction, meaning focus on your employees, create an environment where people can and dare to engage again, and as a result, you will get more better business and consumers outcomes. And what is missing for me is the focus in a lot of organizations on what I just called the people aspect of Scrum. So we're all focused on the process aspect of Scrum, but not on the people aspect of Scrum. So my last questions for you in my first area or direction, humanizing the workplace. So understanding how unacceptable the current way of working is on people, well-being, psychological safety, and so on, and understanding the incredible room for improvement that we have. Imagine that we could uplift those 20% of engaged people to 30, 40, 50%. Imagine the impact, not to speak of the improved business and consumer outcomes. Um, what can you do with Scrum to help increase that level of engagement of people? What can you do with Scrum? How can you organize your Scrum? What would be the impact on your Scrum if your ambition is to stop losing people to long-term absenteeism? What sort of changes would that require beyond the team level, again, at the organizational level? And again, use your imagination. So rethink your Scrum to better serve your product, to help you identify organizational changes that are more useful, also for the well-being of people. So work with other people and reimagine things. So use your imagination. So thank you very much. I hope I get you thinking about stuff. Enjoy it. Enjoy working with people, sharing ideas, exchanging ideas, communicating with each other, and my hope is that you would bring this all together uh, at the event of the 14th of December. So thank you and bye bye.